Hi everyone. If your above ground pool keeps turning cloudy no matter what you do, the problem might not be your pool chemicals. It might be that tiny filter struggling in the corner. Today I'm sharing my experience with this above ground pool sand filter pump, and I'm going to keep it practical. Setup, daily use, water clarity, noise, maintenance, and the few things I wish I knew before getting it. So picture this: an above ground pool sitting in the yard, kids going in and out, leaves dropping from nearby trees, and the water slowly turning from clear to that greenish, cloudy Mountain Dew look. That was the kind of situation where a basic cartridge filter just wasn't keeping up. I was tired of swapping out little filters every few days and still not getting the water where I wanted it. The first thing I noticed with this filter was that assembly was pretty straightforward. The instructions were easy enough to follow, and I was able to get it put together without feeling like I needed to be a pool technician. It's not instant, but it's very manageable. I'd say if you lay the parts out, take your time, and don't rush the hose connections, it's a pretty simple setup. One thing I definitely recommend is thinking ahead with the hoses. During setup, I added shutoff valves to the hoses, and I'm really glad I did. It makes maintenance much easier, because you don't have water rushing everywhere every time you need to check something, clean something, or disconnect a line. That little extra step can save a lot of frustration later. Now, one important thing, don't expect everything you need to be included. The filter media has to be purchased separately, whether you decide to use sand or filter balls. Also, depending on your pool setup, you may need another hose. That's something I wish was more obvious from the beginning, because when you're ready to get your pool cleared up, the last thing you want is to stop and go find extra parts. For my setup, I preferred using filter balls instead of sand. They're lighter, easier to deal with, and when it's time to comb them, I can take them out, rinse them, and put everything back together without feeling like I'm wrestling with a heavy tank full of sand. The filter itself is small enough that taking it apart for cleaning is not a huge chore. I like being able to do that once in a while and actually see what's going on inside. In terms of performance, this is where the filter really made the biggest difference. After getting everything sealed and running properly, the change in water clarity was very noticeable. Cloudy water started clearing up fast, and in about a day, the pool looked dramatically better. That was the moment where I felt like, okay, this is what my above-ground pool should have had from the start. I've seen this type of filter work well on smaller round pools, like a 12-foot above-ground pool, and also on larger setups like 15-foot and 18-foot pools. For a pool around the 8,000-gallon range, it still feels like a strong value as long as you take the time to install it carefully. It's a big step up from the small cartridge-style filters that often come bundled with above-ground pools. The water quality is the biggest positive for me. Once it's running right, the pool stays much clearer, and it seems to handle normal filtration very well. It won't magically remove everything from the pool, of course. Larger debris from trees can still settle on the bottom, so you'll still need to vacuum or scoop that out. But for the actual water clarity, it does a really good job. Another thing I appreciate is how quiet it is. Pool equipment can sometimes be annoying if it hums loudly in the background, especially when the pool is close to a patio or seating area. This one runs quietly enough that it doesn't feel disruptive. You can have it running while you're outside and not feel like it's taking over the yard. Maintenance is also pretty simple once you get used to it. If you're using filter balls, cleaning them is easy. You open the unit, rinse them out, and put them back. That's one of the reasons I personally prefer them over sand. Sand may work, but it's heavier and less convenient if you're planning to take the filter apart regularly. Now let's talk about the downsides, because there are a few things to know before buying it. The biggest one is leaks. This filter can take some patience to get sealed properly. I had to be careful with the hose fittings, clamps, O-rings, and plumber's tape to stop little drips. In some cases, the bottom drain area can be a trouble spot, and if it doesn't seal correctly, that can become really frustrating. Once everything is sealed, it can run fine, but the first setup may take more effort than expected. The plastic parts are another thing to be careful with. Some of the fittings and parts of the pump body feel a bit thin, and during basic maintenance, it's possible to chip an edge if you're not gentle. Mine still worked, but I would definitely avoid over-tightening anything or forcing parts together. Treat it carefully, especially when taking it apart and putting it back together. Another small inconvenience is that there's no on-off switch. To stop it, you unplug it. That's not a deal breaker, but it would be nicer if there were a simple switch on the unit. If you're turning it off often, unplugging it every time can get old. Also, this filter doesn't have a waste option. So if you want to vacuum directly to waste and bypass the filter, that's not something this setup allows. For basic filtering and keeping water clear, it's fine, but if you're used to having that waste setting, you'll miss it. There can also be small issues with parts like the gauge or valve components, so I'd suggest checking everything as soon as you set it up. Make sure the pressure gauge is working, make sure nothing is spraying or dripping, and make sure the valve feels secure. It's much easier to deal with little problems right away than after the pool has already started getting cloudy again. Overall, I think this filter makes the most sense for someone with an above-ground pool who is tired of weak filtration and constant cartridge changes. If your pool water has been cloudy, greenish, or just hard to keep clear, this can be a major upgrade. It's quiet, it's fairly easy to assemble, and once dialed in, it can make the water look clean and clear very quickly. But I would not call it perfect. Be prepared to buy filter media separately, possibly an extra hose, and maybe a few sealing supplies like clamps, O-rings, or plumber's tape. Take your time during setup, don't over-tighten the plastic parts, and consider adding shut-off valves to make maintenance easier. My final take is this: for the price and the improvement in water clarity, I'd be happy using it again, especially with filter balls. It's not the most heavy-duty feeling unit, and the setup may require patience, but once it's running properly, it does what I need it to do: keep an above-ground pool much clearer with less hassle. If you have any questions about this product, feel free to leave them in the comments below.